Welcome back to the IROC Business with Confidence podcast, your go-to resource for monetizing your passions while keeping your budget in mind. I'm your host, Cori Fonville Foster, transformational speaker, certified business coach, trainer, and CEO of IROC Marketable Business Solutions. In today's episode, we have a remarkable guest joining us. Please welcome Carriece Jefferson, a writer, teacher, speaker, and the owner of Crafty Hands Club. Carriece specializes in helping business owners confidently share their stories, make extra income, and gain more brand awareness. With her expertise in storytelling and content creation, Carriece has empowered numerous entrepreneurs to effectively communicate their brand's narrative. Her strategies have helped businesses increase their visibility, attract new customers, and generate additional revenue. Our topic of discussion today is getting paid to tell your story. In the context of leveraging print publishing, Carriece will share practical insights and strategies on how business owners can monetize their stories, gain exposure through print publications, and maximize brand awareness. If you're a business owner looking to share your story, generate additional income, and enhance your brand's visibility, this episode is packed with valuable advice. Get ready to learn from Carriece Jefferson as she reveals how to effectively share your story and leverage print publishing to achieve your business goals. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. Even though I introduced you prior to the start of this podcast, I want to give you an opportunity just to tell our viewers a little bit, our viewers and our listeners, a little bit more about you and what you do and who you serve.
Sure. I'm Carriece Jefferson, and I'm owner of Crafty Hands Club. And what we do at Crafty Hands Club, we help craft business owners tell their story, and we also help them through with written pieces of content. And so the magazine is also part of Crafty Hands Club as well. So once they tell their stories, their articles are featured on the website or in the magazine.
You mentioned there was a magazine. I know people are like, hold up, magazine, she has her own publication. Tell us a little bit more about your magazine, and if somebody is listening, how would they pitch you to possibly get featured in your amazing publication?
Oh, sure. Well, right now on craftyhandsclub.com website, there's a submissions guideline page. And on that page, it has all of the information, with the word count and the topics and so forth. So it's really easy. So when you go there and you do that, then when we receive your submissions, allow at least 14 days for the review and, part of the process. And then we'll reach out to you and further, get you further on with getting your story out there. And it's free of charge, so it's no cost. Again, it will be posted on Crafty Hands Club website, or it can go in the quarterly magazine, depending on, if it fits within the theme.
Okay, I love it. I like how we start a podcast already with some stuff. I hope you guys are taking notes. So if you're a crafter, you have a story to tell, definitely shoot your shot and get up on that, get in the publication. So today, since we're talking about getting our story out, right? Telling people who we are, what we're about, things that are important to us. Tell me a little bit more about how anyone, right? Any business owner could confidently tell their story.
Well, first of all, confidence is the key in your storytelling. You have to believe in your story, and you have to, not be afraid to tell your story, because so many times we could get jaded by other people's opinion, or somebody may say it's too much or that's kind of boring, but your story is your story and it's unique to you. When telling your story, though, it should have, some type of be properly done. You don't just tell your story and that's it, right? So it should have a purpose in terms of like, why are you telling your story? Why does it matter? Who you need to tell it to? Then your story should also have some type of personality, right? Because the purpose of storytelling is to be relatable, to connect with the audience, and for them to engage in your story, whether that's telling somebody else about your story, or sharing it, or liking it, or placing a comment, depending on, how your story is being distributed. And then you want to package your story, right? When you getting it out there to whether it's a press release or a publication or a podcast, you need to package that. And what I mean by package in terms of like, what do you need to go with your story? Do you need bios? Do you need a photo? Do you need a media kit or a press kit? You need to have all of that together and pay attention to submission guidelines or questionnaires that you may fill out, so that way you have things in this proper place before you submit. You don't want, and you want to submit at one time. You don't want to submit every, piece by piece, because people who are looking for stories, they don't have the time to always go back and forth and say, oh, okay, can you send a bio or can you send this? Like some publications, if you don't have everything, it's not accepted. If you do have everything, then they'll go ahead and proceed. And they'll even say that on, the website or wherever that you are looking on. And then after you package your story, you want to position your story. Like who you going to reach out to if you're going to go that route, or are you going to place it on your website? Are you going to do this in your email? Are you going to do this in your social media? So those elements of storytelling are important.
Wow, that you gave us a lot of gems. Again, I hope you guys are taking notes. So for someone who is very new to getting published, you mentioned a few things that one might need before they can submit to a publisher or to any type of press. You mentioned, I think you said, what was it? Was it a one sheet or yeah, your
Yeah.
media, things like that. So can you go a little bit deeper into what would be on these types of documents or pieces of content they would have to be submitting?
The good thing about it is that a media kit, it don't have to look like everybody else's. You may see some designs on Canva, or you may see some designs when you do a Google search, or even someone designing on YouTube. So your media kit is what it is, your social media. So how many followers do you have? If you have like a good sizable email list, how many people are on your email list? If you have a podcast, how many listeners do you have, or how many episodes have you recorded? So you don't always have to have like one way. You can also include on your media kit a little bio about you, somewhere between 4 to 6 sentences, nothing real extravagant, kind of like different highlights. Also, a way for people to contact you. What's your email address? Do you have a website? The different types of social media platforms that you're on. But again, that goes into like the little icon and the number of followers that you have. Now, you're probably wondering if you need a whole lot of followers. Well, you don't. There's some media kits that only have maybe like 400 or 500 followers, but they're getting it out there. Again, content is on demand 24/7, and if you have a that's relatable to the audience that you are trying to get in the front of, they're most likely going to accept what you have. And then that media kit, or if it's for like speaking, right? You have like your 3 to 4 topics that you are known for and that you can speak on. That's your one speaker sheet. It's a photo. It's like your topics that you can speak on, that lets people know that, and that also helps you with positioning, right? So if it's a podcast that aligns with the topics that you speak on, it's going to get noticed first. Again, your contact information, not so much, a little bit of social media, but again, that's like the number of followers that you have at most. Or you could just put, like your links, or your name on the social media account that you are on. So that, and then of course a small bio about yourself on that speaker sheet as well. Just make sure it don't have to be fancy. If this is your first time doing one, make sure that it is presentable, and then you go from there. And as you um, make adjustments, or step things up, you can update that, but I wouldn't spend too much time updating speaker sheets and media sheets. So the media sheet is internal. A press kit is external. So that's more of like, where have you been featured? If you've been featured in magazines, if you've spoken at different events, if you have been featured on podcasts, all of that goes onto your press kit. And you want to keep it organized. If you have Google Drive or whatever you use to store, keep all of that in one place. So that way, when it's time to submit, you have that. Some people have them on their website, a media kit or a press kit or even a speaker sheet, or they have something on the website to say, contact me for speaking opportunities.
Yeah, I actually have some of that on mine. And I was sitting here, I was like, let me write that down to add some more things to it. But I love how you said content is always on demand. I think because some people, especially nowadays, feel like their market may be oversaturated and they're like, well, who wants to hear from me, especially if they're a newer entrepreneur. But I think people need to realize that everyone has their unique perspective. And something we kind of talked about in the pre-interview is this idea about kind of showing up authentic and also kind of making sure that you express how the person who's going to be utilizing you is going to be able to kind of feature your perspective, right? So when you come, even if say you talk about crafting, you're going to be very different than the next person talking about crafting. Your story, your journey is different. And so I think people, when they're pitching, kind of need to think about that and say, okay, what unique perspective can I give to you as the publisher that your audience would be interested in? So for you, when you're thinking about getting people published or you're trying to get yourself published, how would you go about showing your unique or authentic perspective?
So when Crafty Hands Club got into the publishing arena a couple years ago, it was more of reaching out. But before reaching out, just look at various social media pages. It was time consuming, but you got to get your start somewhere. Then, maybe listen to a podcast or see what they've been featured on. And if they haven't been featured on, look for the consistency. Have they been active, within the last couple of months, or, how often they post. You don't have to post every day, but you do need to be current. What types of content are you posting on there? Are you, versatile, or do you have? So I look for different angles. I look for uniqueness. I look for something that could spark. And then sometimes I've reached out and I just ask people, say, hey, we're connected on this platform and I've watched your interaction, and I think, you are interesting and I would like to feature a story on you. Would this be something that you'd be interested in? And a lot of times it was yes, sometimes it was no, I'm not able to do that, or, it's not my thing, or no response, let's be honest. But the ones that did reply, told their stories, and I always allowed them to be themselves. So, sometimes I would, have like specific questions, to ask. And then sometimes I would just ask a question that was kind of like, where we'll force them to expound instead of like a yes or no. And you get your information that way. And then I said, oh, okay, this was something. Then if it was something that sparked the interest a little bit more to go a little bit deeper, I would reach out and I would say, you know what, I really like this particular, thing in your story. And thank you, for sharing. I always thank people for submitting. And then I would ask maybe a few more questions, but I will also let you know prior to receiving that if I saw anything that piqued the interest and wanted further questions, I would ask that. And they freely, openly shared that. So that was one way. Sometimes I've gotten people where they would visit the website and they would send an email and say, hey, I really like what you're doing. Is it okay if I, submit my story? Say yes, go ahead. And I would, give them like the submission rules and the expectations and kind of like the turnaround period. So I, offered that as well. Now that it's added on coming next month, I will be doing a webinar on growing your craft business through storytelling, and it's a free webinar. And I'm going to be sharing with them how they can, use that storytelling so that they are not leaving money on the table. Because a lot of times people think, oh, okay, increase a price or add a product. Don't get me wrong, you should do that. But that's not the only way that you can make money in your business.
Yeah, definitely. And I like you always have so many good gems when you're speaking. So I was making sure I wrote some down. But I like the idea that you talk somewhat from the perspective of someone that's looking for people to participate in their publication, and then also from the idea of people who are then looking to be featured. I think because some of us, like I have a podcast, so I'm always looking for people to come on and be, featured. But I also am someone who appears on other people's platforms as well. And one of the things that I will tell you as somebody who does both is you mentioned the submission rules. Pay attention to how people want you to submit to them. I can't
Yeah.
tell you how many times I have literally had my clients come to me and say, I didn't book anything. And I'm like, okay, well, show me the process you went through. And clear as day, it'll say apply using this link. And they would have sent a DM or email. It's like, no, apply using their link. If they say to comment below, comment below. If they tell you to provide a bio with only so many words or characters, make sure you're
Hmm.
following those rules, because that is the quickest way for someone to say this isn't going to be the right fit, because they don't pay attention. They're not detail oriented, because they want people who can read and pay attention and follow simple directions, so that when it comes to actually doing the work and working together, they know it's going to be an easier process. So that's one of the quickest ways you're going to get yourself disqualified for an opportunity. And I love how you also talked about the idea of you go and kind of do research on people. Guys, if you're not out here being consistent in your brand, posting on social media. And like you said, not every day is necessary, but just showing that you are doing the things you say you do. Then when you go to pitch yourself and they go look at your YouTube or they go look at your Facebook or your Instagram and they see you haven't posted in months, they're going to say, okay, that they probably don't have an audience to bring to me, because people want you featured, one, for your content, but also so you can cross pollinate your audiences, right? So that's
Yeah.
thing else to think about. Like, you have your business, I have my business, and if we both bring our audiences, both of us will grow. But if you aren't nurturing your audience, then it doesn't help that relationship. So those are some things to think about. Now I want to get more into the getting paid part, because right now we're in a place where people want to charge you for everything. What are some of your tips on getting paid for your story and getting paid to be featured?
Okay, here's the thing. So, okay, so that's two different sides. So to get paid, that means you gotta step your game up, right? Because now it's money on the table. So that means what is it that you have to talk about, and not just putting the story out there just to say it's out there, but what are people going to get from that story? Is it going to, connect? Um, Also, you got to have things in place, right? So that means if it's a speaking engagement, reels or videos of you, doing some type of speaking, people giving testimonials or, comments about your speaking ability, right? Also, how well do you know the topic that you are going to speak on? That's why it's important to have 3 to 4 topics that you're really good at and that you can speak on. But when you are speaking, make sure that it delivers what it says, right? If you're doing a virtual event, it's the same thing. Another way you get paid for speaking is through videos. You create YouTube videos and you get to enough subscribers and you get to enough hours, that's a revenue stream for you. Another way of getting paid is, if you're the writer, there's ways to make your money outside of a book. There are publications that will pay you anywhere between $40 an article up to a couple $100, and even some pay maybe 1,000 or 2,000 dollars. But again, you got to be within those guidelines. They have some have lenient requirements, some have stricter requirements for you to follow. So again, it's aligning yourself. And then don't just go on any publication or any platform. Make sure that it fits within what you have the expertise in. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make is to, and it's a detriment to you. They may have 1 million followers, but like if if you make knitted blankets and you go on somewhere that's a hair care line, right, or cosmetic line, that may not, be for you. That audience may not be into what it is that you offer. So make sure that you are getting in the front of the right people. There's groups that you can join for collaborations. Facebook has an article submissions group. I can't think of the name right now, but there's a group where there's different magazine publishers, and you could do that. You could go to the individual sites, like the ones that you like to read. Read a couple issues, see what they themes are, see what they deliver to their audience, and then you align yourself with that and see if they get paid. Another way you could get paid, and this is a little bit more advanced, is to license your story. But again, that's a little bit more advanced. Do a few speaking engagements, or you do a few writings, and you got that traffic and you in demand. You can license those things as well. So those are some ways that you can make money. Another way that you can make money off your storytelling, and it's a simple one. If you sell a physical product, especially handmade, you can tell your story on the product packaging. How many times have you went to a grocery store, or you might have seen clothing, baby clothes or whatever, and you see a story on there? People are drawn to stories now. People like to buy from people where they know the purpose and what they stand for and what they believe in. So the days of just having like a cute product or having like a really good service and don't nobody know the face or the personality behind it, them days are long gone. We're in a digital age, and people want to know. They want to, feel that connection. So start telling your story on your product packaging. You can do it a little bit in your product description. I wouldn't go overboard with that because you're trying to sell the product, but you can weave a little bit in theirs too. There's at least 20 different ways that you can tell your story. And even the ones that are non-monetary, they can lead you to making money down the line. So your blog posts, or some of the free articles that you write today, it may not make you any money, right? But if it's evergreen and it's getting traffic, and then it's a backlink, because that's how Google works. And if it's doing that, you're going to get traffic to your site. And eventually, if you have a good lead magnet, if you nurture people on their website, you can convert them into customers.
Definitely. I love how you talked about the idea of these assets we're using, right? So we're telling our story through our packaging. We're telling our story through your, maybe your website. You're getting put on different platforms, whether they're blogs, whether it's your own own media, or someone else's media, whether you're getting published in other people's magazines, co-writing books, writing your own books, whatever the case may be. All of these are great assets to then move you to another thing, to another sale, to a bigger audience. And I think some people, even myself, I know I was like, well, I don't want to write an article because I'm not a writer. But what we fail to realize is that's just one more opportunity for someone to get to know you or your brand that leads them to things that you do enjoy doing. So don't get stuck in this idea that you're not a writer or that you're not a speaker or something like that. Any chance you get to tell your story is just another opportunity for people to really like you. I always tell my audience, people have to know, like, and trust you. And like you said, the days of just having the best shop in town and everybody from the town uses you are gone. Like, you have to be able to show out and show up consistently all the time, so that people are like, yeah, I see them everywhere. People got to see you, I think, 7 to 9 times before they buy. So if they saw you on a blog, they heard you on a podcast, they maybe got a freebie that has your logo on it, just getting that extra exposure will then bring them to doing more and more business with you, especially if everything is consistent. So I love that you talked about that. Now, something, and we're almost to the end of this talk, but one thing I didn't want to miss out on is the idea of researching the best opportunities for you, because you kind of touched on it in the last question when you were saying, like, don't get on a platform that isn't right for you. I think you said if you were knitting and then you got on like a hair thing. So what are some of the suggestions and ways, like things to look at when you're thinking about, is this platform or is this opportunity the right opportunity for you?
This is where you want to not consume things on social media or online, period. This is where you want to think like from a producer's standpoint. What do I mean by that? Look and see what groups, what platforms have the groups of people that you're trying to get in the front of. You right, depending on your niche and what it is that you're selling and your target audience. That's why it's important to know your target audience, because you need to know what group they in, who they follow, what influencer or what blogs do they read, who do they listen to. That's part of your research. Once you find that out, you need to make a list, and this needs to be ongoing. It don't have to be every day, but you need to carve out some time each month to update your list, to make some adjustments and so forth. And then you start to build relationships, when you join those pages or when you connect with those people. Don't ask right away about something, but you engage with them too, like, and every day spend a little time, seeing what posts they have or what blogs they have, if it's a blogger, what podcast episodes they have. Comment on the things. You can send them an email if they sell something, buy something, kind of get an idea of what it is that they present, and they, it's a story to that, right? Then once you have that, then you could go and, you give it some time, and then you reach out and, you start asking. But the biggest point that I want to make with any of this in your storytelling is don't just be on the receiving end, and be grateful. When people feature your story, whether it's on the magazine, podcast, video chat, book mention, whatever, always be grateful. Be willing to share that on your platform, because it may not give you the big opportunity today, but what you do today determines how people may deal with you 5 years from now. And if someone meets someone and you fit in that category of what someone else is looking for, but because you didn't appreciate the feature or you took it for granted or whatever reason, no one's going to refer you. But if you have gratitude and you appreciate, and not over the top, but genuine, people will keep you top of mind. I've done it for several people that I have featured. Not everybody has a lot of followers. You don't need a lot of followers to get your story out there. Matter of fact, most people have had less than 2,000 followers. And then when the stories got out there, of course, their platforms increased and some went on to get other opportunities. So start where you are, be realistic about it, but don't be afraid to reach out. One no is not final. It may take you to reach 30 or 40 people to get maybe one or two, but every month at the end of the year, you have 24 platforms that you on. And one of those platforms may have 100,000 people. And always make sure you invite people to something. if you got a class, if you got a lead magnet, whatever it is, invite people to something and make sure what you invite them to is in alignment with what you do.
Yes, I totally agree. I always tell people have your CTA, your call to action, because you should never take an opportunity for granted. If you're on a podcast, if you're on a blog, if you have a speaking opportunity, if you're out here giving value, people just organically are going to want to know what's the next thing. Like, how else can I hear from you? How else can I do business with you? And so you always want to have some type of call to action for people to implement right away so that they can stay connected with you. And I loved also how you talked about, like, don't take an opportunity for granted. I can tell you now, you think, well, the world is big and there's lots of people, but you'd be surprised how many people know other people. And
Yeah.
times, if you are a great person on one opportunity, when people ask that person about a referral, they'll think of you. And so oftentimes you're thinking of what can I get right now in this moment from the opportunity. But a lot of times it is what's happening down the line. But doing business is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so you have to think, okay, I'm making this connection today. And like you said, maybe the person doesn't have a huge following today, but I can tell you now, I've gone back and been like, oh my gosh, I remember when I had just a couple of people watching me and this person gave me a chance and now I'm in a place to support them. I'm like, yeah, come back on and do something with me. And you have real collaboration, you have real friendships and connections with people, and then you grow together. I'm not even sure if you know, but our tagline is I rock, you rock, we all rock. And it's that idea of we all can do this together. And so I love that you mentioned that, because I think some people think, oh, I'm too good for this publication or this podcast or this opportunity. Like, oh, it's beneath me. And it's like, you have no clue who that person knows or somebody in their audience knows. And so, of course, you need to guard your time. You can't do all the things and be on all the platforms, but also don't be afraid to try out a small opportunity, especially when you're starting, because you got to get in where you fit in to get some practice and to get your name out there. And then yes, you can definitely grow as you move forward in your business. So I definitely want to thank our speaker for coming onto our podcast. Again, in the beginning, we did give her intro, but just remember that she owns the Crafty Hands Club, and she also owns the publication as well. So before we close out, I want to let her have a moment to give us any last thoughts, so that you can connect with her and see how you can get on her magazine as well. But go ahead and tell us if you have any closing thoughts before we go.
Yeah. Also, again, don't be afraid to get your story out there, but really think about what style suits you. If you're more of the writer, put your story in the position in written form. If you're a video person, do that. If you're a visual person, I'm talking packages or photo books of your designs and things like that. You could go that route. If you are an audio person, a podcast would be suitable for you. There's also opportunities in voiceovers, where you can get a chance to tell your story that way as well. Also, if you are looking to submit your story and get it out there, feel free, open the platform for you to do that. And you could be featured on Crafty Hands Club website. So go to www.craftyhandsclub.com. And next month, for those that never told their stories before or would like to touch up on their storytelling techniques, I will be doing a free webinar on growing your craft business through storytelling, and I'm gonna go over the framework that help you to do that. So those are things that are going on. And lastly, you can follow Crafty Hands Club Mag on Instagram and Facebook. If you are on social media, you can follow Crafty Hands Club Mag on those two platforms.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being one of our featured guests here on the podcast. I think that anyone who's listening or watching definitely has a better understanding of how to, one, tell their story, but two, how to let our stories get us paid and lead to amazing opportunities for us in our business. So again, thank you so much for being here. And thank you all to all of our listeners and our watchers out there, and stay tuned for our next episode.